Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Born Podcast, brought to you from our studio here in central Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Nathan Imboden, and on this show, we get to interview some of the best and brightest business owners and leaders from our area here in central Pennsylvania, learning all about the entrepreneurial and business ownership journey, where we get to talk to them about how they started, grew, and are running their successful organizations, and hopefully making a major impact in their community and their circle along the way. You can find a full replay of our broadcast on our website at thebornpodcast.com. Also, you can find us on any of your favorite social media channels or your favorite podcast app. Be sure to search for The Born Podcast, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button so you can stay up to date on all the episodes and the content that we get to bring to you. And today, it is my privilege to be able to introduce two friends, Jess, Randall Hughes. You're going to know the names probably, but I'll let you guys do all the introductions. So Jess, Randall, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I'd like to start with just a little background about who's Jess and who's Randall. So why don't you each give me, and we'll let ladies go first.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, so I'm Jess Hughes or Jessica. We started working together shortly after we got married, about 15 years ago. Okay. And Randall had started an agency called Viscul before we got married, which I will let him talk about. But today, I serve as a managing director and executive producer for the projects at that agency. And then I exercise my creative skills, and spicing our lives up a little bit with Calicutts, which is our spice company that we, have had for 5 years now too.
I see what you did there.
Yes.
Spice up your lives.
We get to spice up our lives. Well yes. So for the past 5 years, been running two different businesses simultaneously, and just love every minute of it. No day is the same.
Awesome.
So I'm Randall, and I started Viscul in about 2008. Okay. And to be honest, I came up as a designer. So I was just designing. I was at a publishing company before that, and I just started gaining traction with my own clients and things, and kind of went out on my own. So Viscul was really just a freelance start.
Okay.
But then after when we met and got married and everything, it made sense over time that she came on and started helping run the business a little bit. And that's when we really kind of took it to the next level and turned it into more of an agency. But for the longest time, we were doing kind of full service agency and whatever you would need, mostly design. And then in about 2014, 15, we transitioned, not fully transitioned, but we started doing video and photography services. And right now, that's pretty much all we do. We've really transitioned into that over the years. And we grew our team. We've been in 3 different buildings now. So we've been in our building now for about 8 years. And then when COVID hit, we kind of took a step back and said, okay, well, we've been growing this business. Do we want to keep growing it in personnel? What's the work we want to do? How are things going? And we used it kind of as an opportunity to reset. And so now we're much smaller teams. Actually, only one other person that works for us, but we are more of a production company now, and we'll actually hire based on the need for a project or a client. So, so we actually work with much larger teams, but every day to day, it's just us. So a little bit of a transition there. So we've had our moves through what we're doing and how we're doing it. But at the end of the day, we're all just, we're storytellers, and we're trying to find the best stories, the best moments in life to reach, an impact and have that emotional connection with people, and just help them to be able to understand things and be very visual with everything. So, yeah.
So with Decided, you said it became sort of a freelance thing. You had some clients that you were working with, but there's usually some sort of maybe a tipping point that gets you to say, I am running away from this, corporate or whatever gig, and I'm going to go be my own boss. So what was that moment that?
Honestly, it was just in an era where, I wasn't married yet. I didn't have kids. I knew I kind of wanted to do my own thing. I mean, just to go down to the brass tacks of it, I could make more money being independent than just getting a salary, a paycheck from my boss. Learning very quickly after that you can make more money, but it comes in ebbs and flows, right? So you got to figure that out.
And a little more stress.
Yeah. But I do think
just fall out of the
No, it doesn't. A little bit more work behind it.
But it is interesting. Even in all the transitions that we've made, I think, the kind of latest one, whenever COVID hit, is just, we had been growing in personnel and everything, like I said, but, I had really kind of stepped away from the creative and was essentially just managing
people.
Creatives, managing people. And I realized over time that maybe our business won't be as big, but what I want to do in my heart, what I want to take home and what I want to showcase are things that I actually have my hands in and can be a part of. So that's really kind of where that transition kind of dealt from. And,
interesting. Yeah.
And, just got us back to our roots a little bit.
Yeah.
So
cool. All right, let's start. Since this is a longer journey, maybe we'll start on the Viscul side.
And I don't feel left out.
Okay, good. So you figure out you have some chops in this. You get started. You start to build a team. How did you continue to grow the business at that point and grow the team? Did you have something that you decided you were really good at in a niche, or was there a specific specialization that you were really good at? What helped to fuel that growth?
Yeah. Early on in the design world, I think, well, no matter what, I'll always go back to, we are very good at building relationships and maintaining relationships. So even to this day, many of our clients we've had for
over a decade,
people together, we're very good at communication and setting, healthy framework to be able to work around and through. But every time we've transitioned in different ways, we've always kind of fallen into some type of a niche. So, for the longest time, it was really based around food. Okay. And we still do a lot in the food world. We're still very known for food. And that's kind of where Calicutts was a part of that as well. But, so while we do more than that now, we're still very much known for that, but really kind of chunking down into, the production company world is we do documentaries. We can do larger production commercials and things like that. And then we still do some design here and there, but then we also do a lot of photography. So we have our studio that we do a lot of food photography shoots in and things. And then we go on location and do stuff like that as well. So, but again, always kind of coming back to what's that connection? Like, what's the story that we can tell through that? Even if you're just taking pictures of food, like how can you build that scene so it's telling a story? It's not just a bowl of ice cream on a plate or on a counter. It's what, how did it get there? Why is it there? And running that through your mind. Yeah. So, so that's always been kind of the niche, is like bringing things into the real world and, kind of taking the ad space out of it a little bit.
Yeah. So, interesting. All right. So then, if I have my math correct, it was about maybe 2010 when the two of you
we got married in 2010.
Yep.
And did you enter the business immediately, or was there a little bit of a timeline?
No. So my background had previously been in alumni development.
Okay.
And then I moved from that because I was traveling all the time and doing grad school. I moved into a position with one of the state schools supporting a new program that the state had put a grant behind in creating entrepreneurial leadership centers.
Oh, cool.
For their business programs. And so I was actually running that program at one of the state schools on the grant for a couple of years when we met. And as that grant started to run out and other funding had taken over, I started splitting my time between that role and the business and helping him. And then eventually it kind of just hit a tipping point of he needed me more than I needed to be there anymore. So that was kind of how I entered the picture. But I've always been more, my strengths are in administration. So I am good at vision and making sure all the check boxes are checked. And I come from an event planning background too. So if you think about video projects and photography shoots, it's essentially planning an event, right?
Yeah.
So that's really where my background really supported his skills. And I was able to come in and be able to take over like the day-to-day client management stuff so he could focus on the creative and just like project management and all of the legal stuff and the HR stuff and the accounting stuff and all that sort of thing.
All the stuff creatives do not want to do.
All the stuff that he would look at me and be like,
creative.
why do we have to do that? I'm like, because we kind of have to.
Yeah.
So I'm
sorry, not to jump in, but it's funny. Even today, we were kind of working through a contract with a client, and I'm like, just put in what they need and let's get this moving. And she's like, no, we need to.
No, it's a legal agreement. No.
Yeah, I'm the creative. Like, let's just get to the work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're an EOS implementation group.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's it really mirrors that kind of visionary integrator type, the creative, the big ideas, I don't care about the details, and then the one that gets everything done.
Yeah.
And if you have too many creatives, if you have two creatives trying to run things,
right,
you might come up with a lot of ideas and have a lot of cool stuff that's out there, and none of it actually materializes from time to time. So it sounds like a perfect match.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then fast forward a little bit further to the creation of Calicutts. And how did that all come to be? When did you decide we really need to spice things up, in your words?
So, interestingly enough, Calicutts was not started by us. So, Calicutts was started by son and mother-in-law partnership, and they had started a mom and pop kind of shop in the area, and we had been customers since they opened.
And that was local?
That was local here, yeah. And so we decided that we wanted to, through a series of events, purchase the company. And it was a long, drawn out situation, but we actually ended up taking ownership in June of 2020. Okay. And the company has started gaining traction online, which is not what the original owners were really game for. And so, but that's really where we saw a vision for it. So we took it on. It has since been completely overturned in terms of recipes and all those sorts of things. So it's really our ownership now to it. But that's kind of how that came to be. But I was also looking at that point, having a large team, managing a lot of creatives when I'm the one that's no, there's a way that this needs to be done. I needed a creative outlet. You guys can, you and Ricky can share some stories. There you go. So, but I needed a creative outlet. I needed something else that kind of didn't require me to be there all the time. Sure. And Calicutts was the perfect place for that. And I had a vision for it and a desire to really grow it to be something interesting. The interesting thing about the spice industry is that a lot of spice companies target either professional chefs or specifically, not to stereotype, but men behind a grill. And there really wasn't a spice company that was addressing busy working moms wanting to put flavorful but simple meals on the table every night that were healthy. It wasn't takeout. And that's really kind of where I've delved into the industry of, I'm not looking to be something that someone else is. I'm looking just to help, my girlfriends in the neighborhood just get a healthy, clean products on the table and be able to enjoy those. Exactly. And be able to enjoy those moments around the table. I think that's something volunteering at Salvation Army here in Harrisburg years ago that I found really interesting is they have a nutrition program and a cooking class. And the girl who was running it at the time, her and I had an interesting conversation about how she's not just teaching them how to cook. She's like, Jess, it's not even about cooking skills necessarily. It's the fact that these people don't know how to sit around a table and have a conversation. And that's something that I grew up with. I thought that was just the norm, and it's not. And so I think it's really important to be able to take that beyond just cooking skills and the confidence of being able to cook, but also how do we get back to that age-old ritual of having conversations and storytelling around a meal? Yeah. And that's kind of where I think the two companies really have found common ground of how do we cultivate that on both fronts.
Yeah. And two, I think not to get away from that mentality, but also it's not uncommon for an agency that's in a space to kind of start to develop a product line around that. Sure. So, we're in the service industry. At the end of the day, people get older and service gets a little harder to do. Especially it's very labor intensive what we do many times. And I think this just, it allows us to have a product line that over time, as we grow, can just keep escalating as we kind of maybe transition out of the service world later in life. So,
When both, as you were both discussing or talking about the sort of the what it is that you do, it's it's much deeper than the actual product or the output.
Sure. Yeah.
It's much different than a video or an image of food or the actual spices, which are delicious, by the way. but there's a bigger, the storytelling and taking people along a journey that helps them see food in a different way and see what else food can create, not just eating it, and just gathering people around the table and connection and community and being able to incorporate that. And you can tell if you look at the content you put out, your website, that it is about something bigger and how you gather more around that.
Yeah. There's been many times, I mean, a lot of what we do on the Viscul side is like documentary work around where food comes from and the vendors, the people behind some of the products that you might pick up at a grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we go on these trips. We've been all over the world to do that. And you go on these trips and there's been many times where I've left almost emotional because I'm leaving new friends that I just found. And now I get to go back and tell their story. And it's really kind of cool to, I still think back at many of them and it's like, man, I love that I got to have those moments with them. And then it's our job. It's like a duty of ours then to bring it forward. And it's not just saying like, hey, or you can go to the grocery store and buy this product. It's they're especially now, having Calicutts and working through it's I mean, food is a hard business to keep moving. And, and, when you can dive a little bit deeper with human beings and really see what the heart and soul that goes into the things that we eat, it really, it can impact you in a different way.
Yeah, it does.
So
that's really neat. My wife and I and her sister and husband went to do the Bourbon Trail a couple of years ago. Shocker. I like bourbon.
And
hey,
so do I.
I remember one of the things I remember most from that walking away was, holy smokes, we take for granted the simplicity of walking into wine and spirits and seeing the bottle on the shelf and just pulling it right off and not thinking at all about what all went into just getting that bottle on the shelf.
Yeah.
And even the simplistic part of this, seeing the whole, making process, but not even the origination of, well, where did they get whatever grain they were going to use, and the growing of that, and being able on your side to see and hear all their stories really brings to life what's sitting right in front of you, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah. I think that also kind of one of the interesting takeaways that I've taken from the stories that we've told and the people that we've met along the way is that they either grew up in it and they were like a second generation within that farm or industry, or there was something there was like a pivotal moment in their life that really kind of impacted them. Like I think of Brooklyn Deli, right? Like Citra had an amazing upbringing, but she was also, correct me if I'm wrong, a first generation Indian immigrant. And so like she struggled to find like the medium, right? And so she created a company that did.
Yeah. She was second generation. So
her parents were.
So she lived in a weird space where she wasn't Indian enough and she wasn't American enough.
Yeah,
and she developed a food product around that.
Right.
Around combining those flavors to do that. And that, so many.
I mean, the same with White Mustache yogurt, which I'm a diehard fan of. If you're ever in New York, you can find yourself some White Mustache yogurt. But it's an Iranian family and that do it, but they hand whip their yogurt. And you don't find that anywhere else in the States. And she was an attorney and had to fight the legal implications of that in order to produce the way that she had done from her heritage.
Yeah, because in the U.S. you're not allowed to technically touch dairy. It has to be done. Everything has to be done through machinery.
Right.
And
so should be FDA regulations.
It's food safety, which we all understand, but but they were able to kind of work through that with the FDA and say, okay, well, as long as we have regular inspections and you have under these controls, and then you can operate under these parameters. So it's really interesting to.
Yeah. So what that means is that every time you eat White Mustache yogurt, it is always hand whipped.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It is the best yogurt ever. We were just in New York and no joke, we walked a while to ensure that we got some for while we were in New York.
And I'll take that 5-gallon drum.
I may or may not travel with a cooler to New York just for that yogurt.
That sounds like I don't blame you. Based on what you're saying. Yeah. Sold. I'm ready to go to New York right now and just pick some up. Oh man. All right. You noted two specific dates that lead me to believe that you guys are gluttons for punishment and pain. So you started your business in 2008 during the financial crisis.
Correct. Yep.
And then you guys decided to buy Calicutts in 2020, right in the midst of COVID. So, first of all, it's nice to meet people that really enjoy diving in some of the most, what are perceived to be inopportune times.
Yeah.
I started my first business in 2008. So
okay. Perfect.
And I'm a bit of a contrarian thinker, so it was partly why I did that. But what was that like to launching and you were single, probably you were single at the time.
Yeah.
Probably low overhead, maybe.
No overhead at all.
Now's the time to do it.
I had a cheap apartment outside of Harrisburg, and it didn't, at the time, it didn't even really occur to me the timing. It's not, I think in many times there can be chaos going on around you, and you're not paying attention to it, right? Exactly. You're just in your own little world. In 2020, obviously we're all aware of what was happening, but when I was in my early 20s, the economy was not my biggest concern back then. But I think you hear the news and you understand what's going on. But my take was, when people stop marketing completely, then all businesses are going to fail. So I at least had some security in the sense that, like, if I found the right businesses, I could kind of get intertwined with them. And like I said, kind of at the beginning, I started out even then building a relationship. I only had 2 or 3 clients, but there was a lot of work that I was getting from them. So I was able to just maintain those few relationships. And when one seemed like it was going, I would kind of try to bring in another one. And it's kind of always been that way. And I think we've always thought, even to this day, we still don't have tons and tons of clients. We have enough clients to keep us moving, but we want to be able to support them. I'd rather in the end make a little less and know that I can deliver on my promises than take on too much and not be able to maintain the quality and the relationships that we want.
Yeah. So. Yeah, 100%.
All right. So that sounds like that was a little bit of a journey on the Viscul side. You went through a growth period where you had a lot more people than you do now. And as I said before, part of your role shifted where you were not being as creative and not really fulfilling your own satisfaction in what you were doing as much.
Right.
But then saying, well, I'm willing to make less. I could make more if I did things this way or this way, which may mean that I'm kind of sacrificing on some things that are really important to us and to the business and to our family. So when did that change? Because that's, especially the success side of things, can also have a way of continuing to drive in that direction.
Right. Sure. So I think success is just,
you have to define it for yourself.
You have to define it for yourself. Right. So if it's just money that you're going after, then, and that drives you, then keep doing that. I think for me, and somewhat in this world, it was always people. Like, the more people we can get on staff, the bigger we can get. We were actually making less at that point because the overhead was so much higher, and when it came down to it, I wasn't happy. We were dealing with a lot of headaches. It was just, we had really great people, but there were different personalities, and we were just trying to figure out how to deal with all that. And because we were growing every 2 years, we were moving locations. It was just thing after thing after thing. Meanwhile, our family's growing. We were building our first house back when we were doing our second studio. It's just it's been a whole thing. Yeah. And, but again, we just had to go back to say, well, what is it that we actually want out of this life? What is having this and this team and this location and these things? What are we actually sacrificing to be able to do that and keep growing it that way? Or what are we able to do because of that? So we had to the pros and cons of life, right? And just figuring that out. And I think ultimately it just came down to we can maintain a good quality of living, and I can still kind of do what I desire to do and what fulfills me. And it's connecting with people. It's sitting down at a table and talking to them and seeing their processes and, being able to kind of bring that forward. And if I wasn't doing that, then I was just pushing paper, so to speak. And that's not where my heart is. So, the good thing about having a team that it did actually kind of transition us into is back in the day, whenever I didn't have a creative outlet, we actually started doing a lot of food photography just to kind of ramp up my skills in that. So while we were maintaining the rest of the team, I was also building this other service platform that we could use. So now that's become such a big part of what we do as well. And I think as a company that can give video and photography, it actually makes us much more well-rounded now. And then that's something that came out of me needing to have that outlet back then. And so it's just been an interesting ride. So
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
All of the above.
Well, it's interesting because I'm listening to you, and I mean, we've had these conversations numerous times, but you know, for him, he needed the creative outlet and he needed to scale back. And then there's me, and you're like, well, if like you can maintain the status quo, like why Calicutts? But he needed to be able to be creative and not be over people and managing people. Like they always say, as you're growing a business, you need to make a decision of, do you want to do what the business actually is, or do you want to manage people? Because there are two tracks to that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like, I'm always driven by like, what's the next thing? What's the next growth? Like, and it's not necessarily about money. It's just like, I'm very goal oriented. So I'm like, I need to keep pushing in some capacity. And I think that's where Calicutts, like, yeah, I have the creative side with the spice blends, but like I have something now that I can continuously be growing and dream about and those sorts of things. Not that I don't dream about Viscul and what needs to happen there, but at the same time, I think we've just become pretty content with like knowing, yes, that's your stomach. Pretty content with like what it is and what it needs to be and the type of work that we do, and being able to say like, we're booked.
Right.
And being able to walk away from that. Whereas for me, I'm like, you know, we were in New York at a show for the past couple of days, and I'm like, yes, we like, now we have orders with them and we're having conversations with them and like all these different things. And that's what keeps me going. Like I need that constant like movement and drive. Like but I love being able to be grounded in just like knowing who we are and the values that are behind it. And at the end of the day, like it is about people around the table and being able to tell those stories. Yeah. So.
But it sounds like the Calicutts has been a journey as well, because when you bought it, it was one thing and it was shifting, you said, towards the online, and now maybe has shifted to a little bit different. So why don't you talk about that and really like what helped it take off?
Well,
it's still taking off.
It's still taking off. We had some setbacks along the way. But I think the reality is that, you know, it was a mom and pop shop. It was a retail store. And our first Christmas, well, even backtrack from there. So 3 months in, one of our friends who we had known through the food industry for a while had been on Good Morning America during COVID. And she was like, you are a shoo-in for this. And I was like, okay, can you give me a little bit to get my feet underneath myself here? Yeah. So 3 months she gave me, and then the phone rang, and that whole experience was like baptism by fire, because all of a sudden you have like 2 weeks to fulfill a certain quota, and then you have to ship within 3 days. So like it is an experience in and of itself. I think I called in every favor I possibly could. We had it was literally like PTA signups. Like, I need people for this shift, that shift, this shift. And it was we had people at 2 different locations. Like we worked so hard. And at the end of the day, I was exhausted, but it was so exciting that like you just ran on adrenaline. But then coming out of that was about October, and then we went into the holiday season. And that holiday season, we ended up having to close the retail shop because we had so many online orders. We have pictures of the retail shop. It's just floor to ceiling boxes. Like, we didn't know where to put them. So we went from that then into, it kind of stayed steady like that. And we were like, we can't stay in this location. It was 4 floors, like carrying 50-pound boxes up and down stairs all day is enough to break anyone's back. So we were like, we can't stay here. At that point, Viscul was working from home. It was working really well. We kind of convened everyone, and we were like, okay, like, are you good working from home? Are you sure? Like, this is a long-term decision. And they were good. It was working for us. And we said, okay, then we're going to like renovate this part of the building that we have and move Calicutts in, and we're just going to close the retail store. So there was some backlash from the local community on that, and understandably so. So we did monthly pop-ups until our family life just couldn't support that anymore. And it was really hard to find employees to work retail when we didn't have we didn't have an actual retail store on a random Saturday once a month.
Right.
So we've kind of stepped away from that and just focused on online, but also growing our wholesale business. So now we're in over 300 retailers across the country. We have some really large accounts that are kind of my pride and joy, and we continue to build those. And so it's taken a different track, but it's also allowed us to take a step back and say, okay, who is Calicutts? Who do we want to serve? How do we best serve them? Because at the end of the day, stories, every business has a story, and it's about joining that target audience and the person that you're telling that story along their journey. Like, we have to walk that journey with them. So trying to meet them where they're at and then walking that journey with them through some sort of transformation in their lives, right? And so Randall's so good at capturing that, but it's a different skill to be able to take a step back and see that journey and cultivate it from a different business perspective. So that's really where Calicutts has had to step back and grow. We've had other setbacks along the way that I won't go into, but I really think there was a reason for those things to happen, for us to have to step back and say, okay, like, what are we doing? How do we make this business ours? And who do we want to serve? How do we walk alongside those sorts of people? What kind of offerings beyond just spices are we providing and being able to launch it? So we're actually headed into a bigger launch here going into the holiday season that we're super excited about. So
cool. Yeah. And I will say, just to go back to something you said earlier too about it, kind of becoming ours. When you buy a business of something that was started by somebody else, it does take you a long time, a few years of just like, I'm just running somebody else's business right now. And it took us a while to kind of get out of that mentality and say, okay, this, like, we've gotten to a point now where it feels like we've put our stamp on it enough that it's ours. And yes, somebody else started it with the name and everything, but now we've just transitioned it into something completely different. And I think that's the exciting part as well. And we've also learned along the way how much harder it is to run a food brand than you might think. And, I've been in and out of hundreds of them, different people and producers, whether they're doing, like the yogurt or they're, running a 4,000 acre farm. We've been all over, and, you hear the stories, but until you're in it and you're in the thick of it every day, you don't realize, it is a hard thing to do.
There's so many levers to pull on a daily basis.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's some good lessons there around being patient when taking over an existing brand to turn it into whatever you want it to be, because there is a little bit of a craft to changing things well, that you don't alienate loyal customers or loyal people who have supported a brand for a long time while possibly trying to bring in a new brand or a new group of individuals that you really want to target. There's a separate discussion.
And it's interesting too, because it's also, you're constantly being compared to someone else, like whether it's intended or not. Like, I would say probably for the first 2 to 3 years, it was just like, well, they did it this way. And I'm like, I understand that. I'm not that.
Right. Yeah. But also you have,
it's interesting too, because probably for the past 2 years, I really haven't heard as much commentary in that area. And while we were in New York, it came up with a random comment, and I was just like, when will this ever end? I know. I'm like, maybe we should change the name and call it a day.
Well, and I think too, and our vision for it, even to this day, has always been, we're, again, not trying to alienate the local community. We love the local community. That's a big part of it. We actually loved having our pop-ups and being able to talk to people, but at the same time, our overarching goal is to become more of a nationally known brand. And it's really hard to manage both at the same time. So, if you're paying attention to everything your local community needs, then you're not helping grow the brand on the back end. Right. So it's like kind of picking and choosing. And I think there's plenty of locals who might probably think we've ruined things, but they don't know what's happening, what we're trying to get it to be.
But it goes back to the behind the scenes conversation, in the sense of marketing a local business, a local shop, is a completely different beast than marketing an online business that also sells retail to a nationwide audience. Right. Yeah. Like, those are two different beasts to deal with, and to do them at once as one person
it's a challenge.
Is an extreme challenge.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. I will, a couple of years ago, I interviewed one of the two gentlemen who purchased Lilly Pulitzer back when it was a nothing brand. I mean, it had been a brand, kind of went out, and they purchased it. And one of the things that always stood out about his conversation was he said, I always had a vision of wanting to grow this thing to $200 million revenue business. Mm-hmm. And when you think of it that way, that seems insurmountable. But he started sort of peeling it back and saying, well, what do I need to do to get there? And he realized, well, I really need, if I can get 1 million females, because their brand was mainly catered to females, to spend $200 a year, I've got it. All right, well, that doesn't feel as, I mean, it's still a lot of people, but I can now start kind of targeting and tackling that. Yeah. And sure enough, the year that they sold the business, they did like $203 million. They had just over 1 million clients that were spending about that. But it is a very different thought process and how you acquire those people, because you are having to deal with different geographical regions, different subcultures within even our, culture here in the United States and all that. But,
and I think my whole thing is, I love local gems, right? Yeah. Going to the local place and finding that thing that you can't get anywhere else. And so it just isn't what our ultimate vision was for the business. Yeah. But it's
something the business was headed either.
Right. And that's something where it's like, even me to this day, I'm like, well, if this place that I love to go would shut down or stop, being it, I would feel, so I try to put myself in the shoes of where people are. And what I love though, is that I still feel like the heart of the business is the same, in the sense of like why we're doing what we're doing, and the people we're trying to connect with, or just trying to connect with them on a broader scale.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. You mentioned some initiatives coming and sort of a focus on being very dedicated to who Calicutts is. So, do you want to talk a little bit about any of that stuff? You don't have to share, obviously, things that aren't coming out, but what, are you really leaning into the busy working moms or busy moms that are just trying to put that food on the table that's good, that's healthy, that's creating conversation? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it is not necessarily even moms. I mean, I think it's working parents, and we're not trying to. I had the sweetest email from one of our customers probably about a week ago. So we just ran our birthday sale a few weeks ago, and we did a follow-up email of like, tell us how you're using the spices, like that sort of stuff. Like, I'm always curious, because you stand there and you pack the boxes on a regular basis, and you think to yourself like, oh, I wonder if they order a gift collection, like, is this a gift? Like, what is it a gift for? Like, you're always curious. Sure. I love the holiday season when people include like notes for who they're shipping to. Some of them crack me up. Some I'm like, I don't know that I want to know the details, but it's just, there's this sentimental factor to it that I think is really interesting. But I think for us and the growth and who we're targeting, this gentleman emailed me and he was like, I noticed during the birthday sale, you really were speaking to women, and I feel as though I need to speak up. I'm a 75-year-old Italian man, and I do all the cooking for my family. And and what I loved about it is he wasn't trying to make me feel bad. He was just like, I think you need to be aware. And it's not that I'm not aware. It's like, it's a marketing thing. Like, you need your person, right? Yeah. But I also take a step back. Like, Randall, when I'm extremely swamped, he cooks. He's a great cook. I love cooking. Right.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a medium to it. I think you'll see content for men as well as content for women. Yeah. So I would say just the busy working parent, like that 30 to 45-year-old target, I think is really meaningful. I think a lot of our audience from the local community skews a little bit older than that. At least like historically, I think we've slowly been seeing that shift. But that's kind of who we're targeting. But it's about like the seasonality of it too. Like, it's not just use these spices all year round. Like, there are certain flavors that sell better in fall and winter versus spring and summer. And so how do we bring seasonality to it? So you almost have to think of it more as a lifestyle brand. Like, how are lifestyle brands, you think of the Magnolias, the Studio McGee's of the world, like they're constantly shifting their collections for the holiday season versus the spring, like all those different things. So I think you'll see more of that kind of fluidly running through Calicutts marketing and our offerings. But I think it also goes back to like, as a female, you kind of run with those seasons as well. Like, produce that's in season at the farmer's market, or it's back to school. Like, that's a different beast versus the end of school and heading into summer. So how do we help parents who are surviving the chaos be able to kind of go from summer picnics into back to school into holiday entertaining and kind of run that gamut along their journey?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Well, and there's sounds like some good collaborative nature between the stuff that you're talking about doing and what Viscul brings to the table.
Oh, 100%.
How do you message, especially when you're talking about, we have this specific core of who our brand seems to be all about. And how do we reach those folks without alienating others who aren't part of that exact core demographic, but still believe in the mission behind and the concept behind why these spices bring people around the table and do all that, and messaging appropriately.
Sounds
like you got maybe some people, some people that can help you out with that.
It's also tough though, because even for us, because in this world, the social media and driven world that we're in, it's like I'm used to doing everything at a very high level, and as far as creative goes, and I think she gets frustrated sometimes because the way I make things look, and she can't always replicate that when she just we need to just run with stuff. But also, I think I've had to take a step back even in our role and say, okay, sometimes people want stuff that's just shot on a phone, and they want it to say, okay, if I shot this on my phone, if I'm the customer, is it going to feel the same as what they're showing me? And I think that there's moments where me as like this, kind of, I don't want to say perfectionist, because we strive for our work not to be perfect looking, but just this level of creative that the average person doesn't do. They don't do it every day. How do we kind of balance those two things of like showing people the like, I want to strive to have these beautiful things, but we also need to show everyday life and what that looks like and feels like as well. So we've had our moments of like,
it's like I say to him, there are things that if I were to ask him to do it, it would take him a whole lot longer, and he'd have several questions along the way in order to do it. That's the way I feel about photography and videography. And design, for that matter. Like interior design, I'm totally fine. But like from an actual like graphic design standpoint, I'm like, can you chat? Like, I will spin my wheels an entire day and walk away extremely frustrated with this, or it can take you an hour. And it'll be done, and you have a happy life.
Just have to learn when to give and when to walk away. So.
Abby got a good chuckle out of that. Yeah. Awesome. So much more that we could go into.
Sure.
I think we probably need to have you guys back at some point, because we didn't even get to like 98% of the questions that I really wanted to talk through.
All good.
One thing I would like to ask though is, and you've already, we've been talking about the differences between your personality and how you operate, and how that kind of works together. But as you navigate both life and these businesses together, what have you found that has been helpful in doing that well? And that also can mean what lessons have you learned, but maybe things you haven't done well that you've been able to sort of grow and improve on.
Yeah. I think one thing for me, and people ask us this all the time, like, how do you work with your wife? I could never work with my wife. I hear that all the time. And, kind of like what you said already, it's we both have our strengths, and we've learned in certain ways to just let them play to the strengths and not even, just stay out of the way when you can and or when you need to. And I think Calicutts has been, we had a really good rhythm with when Viscul was the only thing. And Calicutts, it was like a whole new learning experience.
Sure.
Like, okay, it really was meant to be Jess's thing to start, and I was going to help, but what does help look like?
Yeah.
And how do we figure that out? And I think for us, it was just the best advice was just taking a moment to step back and say, okay, what are we each going to do? And kind of helping where needed, but not overlapping where we didn't need to, because that tends to be where rifts start. Not that we like argue about it, but it's just, I know to stay out of the way of certain things, and she jumps in, and vice versa. And to me, that was the biggest thing. I don't really have any specific tools, so to speak, but it's more just listening, taking in, and kind of giving what you can when you need to.
Duct tape, and a muzzle.
Yeah, exactly. Put me in the corner, and I'm good to go. Yeah.
Actually, I always go back to something that we did a lot when we were dating, which is, we were both younger. I was paying for grad school. He was starting a business. So it's not like we had disposable income. So a lot of times when we were dating, we would just like go for a drive to a random destination, whether it was like the pet store that's in Lancaster because he had a fish tank at the time, or like
no more fish.
No more fish. Lots of other animals, but no more fish. But like we were and we lived 45 minutes apart from one another too. So I think to this day, some of our best conversations and our best communication happens when we travel together. And maybe that's just a day trip somewhere that we're just like talking, or we're on our way to a meeting in DC or New York or whatever. Or it's just getting away for an overnight or a weekend. And it's not even like there's an agenda attached to it. Sometimes there is, because I'm me. But just being able to be like, this is like where my thoughts are. This is where my dreams are. Like, this is where like my brain's been stirring. And I think we've learned to bring some of that into our daily lives, like just in quick check-ins of like, how are you feeling about this? Like, and do they have what they need? Do I have what I need? Like those sorts of things too. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is creating space for communication, because there are seasons where, and honestly, we're probably coming out of one right now. July was just crazy. There was like this 3-week period where we were traveling, or we had people in, or we were prepping for things, and just being able to like take a step back and be like, okay, like we just need to take stock of where everything's at and say, okay, like this is how we move forward. Whether it's kids starting school to, coming back from that show and all the follow-ups that need to happen, to where projects stand with Viscul, like all those sorts of things. Just making sure that we're on the same page. I think when we start to butt heads, it's when we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
And that constant communication really kind of needs to happen.
Yeah. I'll go back to that again, the communication. I think so many times you just go through life, whether it's with your spouse or it's employees or whatever, but you just taking that moment to kind of check in, like where are things? How are we doing? How are you feeling? And finding those little moments of maybe somebody's overwhelmed and you didn't even know, just how can you communicate a little bit clearer and consciously, I think, as you go through life. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Communication, it's a simple concept, not always easy to implement, but it sounds like you're working good rhythms, and try to keep learning from it. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I like to just give a quick minute to have each of you to share, if anybody that's been listening wants to hear more about or learn more about either one of the brands or the businesses, what's the best way for them to find out about those organizations?
Sure. So for Calicutts, it's calicutts.com, CALICUTTS.com, or Calicutts Spice Co. On Instagram. Those are our two primary.
Yes. Okay. And Viscul is visculcreative.com, and it's VISCUL creative.com. And I'll just really quick, everybody always asks me about the name and where it comes from. Yeah. And it's actually the words vision and culture put together. So people early in my career was like, that's a weird name. Why'd you name it that? And then you tell them and they're like, oh, okay, I get it. But still a weird word. So anyway, it's stuck. It's been around for almost 17 years now. So
I like it.
Just let it roll.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. It's here now. So
yeah. It's not going anywhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I've already extended an invite for version 2.0.
Sounds good.
Because we have so much more that we could talk about.
Good.
But I'm getting yelled at. I have a tough time sticking to any sort of a time frame. So when good conversation is happening, we just got to keep going.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing your story. Everybody at home, check out both Viscul and Calicutts. Are doing some awesome things in the food space. Some real great content that they put out. The spices are amazing. And so if you're looking for any of that, please be sure to check them out. Support people right here in our backyard. in Central Pennsylvania. We'll see you on the next episode of the Born Podcast.